On Tuesday, Taiwan's legislature passed the controversial anti-infiltration bill just 10 days before voters elect the island's leadership and legislative body. The law is expected to criminalize a range of political party activities that might sway Taiwan on behalf of so-called infiltration sources. Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang, has condemned the bill, accusing Taiwan leader Tsai Ing-wen and her Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, of using the bill as a political tool to gain votes. Latest polls also suggest that Tsai Ing-wen comfortably leads the race ahead of KMT candidate Han Kuo-yu. So how to interpret this bill and how might it affect the upcoming elections? Joining me for the discussion is Heqian, a current affairs commentator who is from Taiwan, and Victor Gao, Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization. Gentlemen, welcome to The Point. Let me just read very briefly or summarize this bill. Under the bill, it says that anyone who receives funding, instructions or donations from so-called infiltration sources to mobilize public rallies for election campaign activities, to lobby government officials or lawmakers, or to disrupt the social order could be jailed for up to 7 years or fined up to 10 million new Taiwan dollars. So first of all, Mr. Xu, let me ask you, what is such a law all about? I mean, there are many terms which I find very difficult to characterize. For instance, to mobilize public rallies or to disrupt social order. How do you standardize this?
Yes, I think the whole idea behind this legislature is that it's a very threatening signal to the old kind of the people who has any kind of exchange engagement with the mainland actors of Taiwan, to warn you that you had better not to say anything about Taiwan's domestic politics. That's basically deprive a significant amount of people of Taiwan who engage with mainland, no matter they are studying, working here, or have a contract, or even the manufacturers who got the, for example, the exporting tax refund from the mainland's customs. And maybe under this legislation, maybe they cannot for example, to participate in the election, to initiate the referendum ideas, or to join into the public debates, or even to donate to their own preferred candidate. Or they might be under suspect of be funding or be sponsored or be indicated by the mainland authority to do so.
It seems that this bill is clearly targeting those who are in close contact with the mainland, or who are very deeply involved in exchanges with the mainland, be it business exchanges or academic exchanges or other normal exchanges. Victor Gao, what is your take on this bill?
Well, one megatrend over the past 10 years or so is greater and increasing exchanges between the two sides of the Taiwan Straits. At any given moment, there are expected to be 1 million people from Taiwan working, studying, traveling, living in mainland China. And the so-called mainland bribes, for example, already number up to about almost 500,000.
You mean those from the mainland who are married
to Taiwanese family, for example. And such exchanges are increasing, and this is a megatrend. I don't think any political force in Taiwan can stand in the way of greater exchanges between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. This bill apparently is targeting against so-called infiltration forces originating from mainland, or those who work or live, etc., or do business involving mainland interests. But I think this is actually, first of all, it's very vague, as you mentioned. Secondly, it's very futile, because how can you really stand in the way of greater exchanges and cooperation between people of the same race, same culture, same language, same background in many senses between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait? And if you carry this so-called anti-infiltration law to the extreme, you will really create fascism in Taiwan, because you are really depriving lots of people in Taiwan of their rights to engage with mainland China, doing business, living, and education, for example, in many ways.
As I mentioned, this law was passed 10 days ahead of the elections in Taiwan for the region's leadership and for the region's legislative body. Some people are saying, as I said in the leading, that this law was passed to gain votes. You know, it is used as a political tool. How do you see that, Mr. Xu?
I'm not that we agree with that, because I think ultimately this legislature will backfire DPP's the momentum and ignite.
Why did they rush it through? I mean, why did they approve this bill 10 days?
I think they want to put an ending note for year-long campaign, mainstream idea for Tsai Ing-wen's campaign that depicting the whole process as a anti-mainland jihad of Taiwan people, and they want to put a more strongest ending voice to the whole campaign. But I think it will ignite people's emotions and willingness who may not totally agree with Tsai's endeavor, and to cast a protesting vote and to say no to this kind of overconfident, even or maybe I would say very arrogant measures of legislation.
Why do you think this is going to backfire? What give you this sentiment?
Yes, according to the polls has been released for the months, as we can see, as you have said, the Tsai Ing-wen make a comfortable lead compared with Han Kuo-yu. But I think one of the reasons behind it is Han Kuo-yu cannot to solve its legitimate issues that why he just got elected as a mayor of Kaohsiung City, and then less than 1 year he campaigned for another post. But I think under this bill has been passed, I think people will be warned and be very worried about that. Will Taiwan be drawn back into an era of McCarthyism, or according to the island's own history, will Taiwan be drawn back to the era of the so-called martial law ruling?
Okay, Victor, your take on the same questions.
I think this law is designed to create hysteria in Taiwan. And it is very much aimed at witch hunting, for example, because there are many people in Taiwan who engage with China, mainland China, in multiple ways. And I think this legislature is aimed at, for example, accusing these people of receiving funding from the so-called infiltration forces, regardless of whether this is true or not, regardless of whether this can be proven or not. And this will really take more votes from the opposition party, KMT, and this will boost more votes for the DPP. So I think this is very much
You think this is going to give a boost to the DPP?
At least the design of this law is to take more votes away from KMT and give more votes to DPP. But eventually, I agree with you, this most likely will backfire because, as I mentioned, the mega trend, which is irreversible between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait, is greater exchanges between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait.
Some business leaders in Taiwan have voiced concern. For instance, the founder of Foxconn, who is a major supplier of accessories or assembly to the Apple phones, Terry Kuo, he has said that there could be repercussions for business people based on the mainland who were not aware that certain activities may have political consequences. So he puts it pretty clear. People like him would be dissuaded from doing conducting business exchanges with people from each side. Knowing this kind of negative consequences, why would Tsai Ing-wen and her government still push through such a bill?
I think I don't expect that we can see a very large waves of the rebuffs from the business community of Taiwan, especially those who based in mainland China and manufacturing Chinese mainland, because after all, the business people always tend to keep and manage the relations to both governments on either side of the cross strait. But I think, the business community.
What is the biggest impact then? Where would be the biggest impact?
I think the biggest impact for them is they're not. If Tsai and his DPP can win another turn, and I think the business people, they're not to say their descendants or the different opinion towards Tsai Ing-wen's government and the following measures that might undermine the stability and the status quo of the cross strait. They might greatly marginalize from the public debate inside the island, and it will largely undermine and dissolve a charged democratic foundation of Taiwan's dynamic society.
Victor, your take on the reason why Tsai Ing-wen's government still pushed through this law, knowing the possible negative repercussions on the business.
First of all, I think this law is very much designed to criminalize lots of normal activities between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait. For example, if a business person from Taiwan is doing business here in China, setting up factories, remitting money back and forth across the straits, for example, and he may be accused of funneling money from infiltration forces, which are very, very difficult to define, back to Taiwan in support, for example, of political activities. And this may be very counterproductive because there, as I mentioned, at any given moment, there are about 1 million people from Taiwan working, living, being educated, traveling in mainland China.
2 million.
2 million, yes, exactly. So, and the number probably will further increase. And also, before the recent termination of the individual travelers to Taiwan, for example, there are also many mainland tourists traveling to Taiwan, which create more jobs and help to create more revenue for Taiwan, which is a good thing. But all these steps are being halted, and this new legislation probably will decrease the exchange between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait and also criminalize some of these activities.
So overall, we're going to see a very dismal picture between people-to-people exchanges across the strait, because the mainland stopped the individual travel scheme. The mainland also discouraged mainland artists to participate on film festivals that was organized on Taiwan, and then Taiwan is passing this bill. What do you foresee in the near future in terms of people-to-people exchanges between the two sides? You personally could be affected as well.
So I think ultimately we should believe in a very charitable essence of the Taiwan system. That is the people, they will have the peddler effect. So when people, so when the people see that the one side is overconfident or even sneak into a model of taking an authoritarian process to the people, and people will initiate kind of self-adjustment mechanism in our democratic system. And then I think people, during the election, the result we will see very soon, and we will think, I think the leads and the narrow between the two camps will be, the distance between the camps will be largely narrowed after the law has been passed.